All right, so I'm going to, can everyone hear me? I'm not crazy about the microphone. I'm not opposed to it, but I feel like my voice projection is good enough. Can everyone hear me back there? Good? Okay. All right, well, I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Oscar Ibieta. I'm with Texas Medicare Solutions. I've been in the Medicare industry for almost 13 years now, so I got into the business and I started at what's called like a street level. Basically, I was out and about kind of educating people, talking to them about what the different Medicare options are. Since then, I decided to start my own agency, and so now I have a team of agents that go out and I train them and teach them how to sit down with you and talk to you about all the different Medicare options that you have. But what we do, we are an insurance brokerage, and so what that means, as you know, when you have Medicare, it doesn't cover everything. It only covers, in general, about 80%, and it doesn't cover prescription drugs. So you've got to package it with some sort of other insurance, whether it's a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan, or some of you may have retirement health insurance benefits. That's an option that you can go as well. So what we do is we just sit down with you, talk to you about what Medicare is, what it covers, what it doesn't cover, and what your Medicare options are. And everybody's different. Medicare is not a one-size-fits-all program. So when you talk to your friends and family, even here in this room, and they say, I've got this plan and it's the best plan for me, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the best plan for you. Everybody's got different needs. Everybody's got different doctors. Everybody takes different medications. So not all plans are fit for every individual. And so that's what we do. We kind of break that down for you. We ask you who your doctors are. We take a look at the medications that you're taking. And we ask you questions, what's important to you, what matters to you, and then we can make recommendations based off of that. I was just telling Paul, there's over 100 different Medicare options that are out there, and the way it works is you get Medicare, you turn 65, you get Medicare, and it almost just feels like, here you go, go figure it out and pick some sort of secondary insurance. And so that's where we come in. We come in and we help you understand those options and help you make a decision. What I love about what we do is we don't charge for our services, so our services are absolutely free to you. And the way that we get paid is the same. So if you pick, if you choose an insurance with United Healthcare or Humana or Blue Cross, Blue Shield, or Aetna, my paycheck doesn't change. Our paycheck doesn't change. It just comes down to helping you figure out what plan makes the most sense for you. So as brokers, we contract with all the insurance companies that you've heard of: United Healthcare, Humana, Aetna, Blue Cross, WellCare, WellPoint, Devoted, anything and everything you see on TV and that you get in the mail, we have contracts with those companies. And so our job, again, is just to simply sit down with you and walk you through, talk with you about the different options that are available to you. So I have a short presentation. I'm not going to go, so just so everyone kind of understands what type of presentation this is, it's more on the educational side. So, because a lot of times I get questions, I've got this insurance, can you tell me what's changing about it? We can, but I probably won't do that here today. Everybody's got different insurances. I don't have everything memorized off the top of my head. So it's going to be more general information that I'm going to be sharing with everybody, something that applies to everybody. Afterwards, I'll kind of open it up to questions. If I feel a question is very specific to an individual, I might just say, hey, let's talk afterwards, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But I want to my goal is to kind of have content, information that is going to keep everyone engaged and that kind of applies to everybody. Because if I get a very specific question and if I decide to answer it in front of the group, it may confuse a lot of other people because some of those things may not apply to everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this here. I had a clicker.
Oscar, are you still doing home visits?
Not as much as I used to. So, and that's simply because I just don't have the capacity. Like, I just can't do it the way that I guess it's a good problem to have in a way. So, don't have my clicker. That's fine. Use the space bar.
Is it on this side?
No, I have it. Oh,
Could I ask Brenda a real quick question? The service for Paul is the 281 Costco, but across the street from it? Okay, great. Thanks.
What's that? Is it the one by Hoffy Mall? By Hoffy Mall?
Right beside it.
Okay.
You've been there?
Yeah, right next door. Questions?
Is
I know we're talking about.
They were asking the location of the of where the service is going to be
Oh,
for
I
Paul
see. Got it.
on
Thank
Monday.
you. Thank you.
If you can't see the screen, don't worry. I'm going to talk about it. I'm not one who just sits here and kind of reads verbatim on what's on the screen. But so today's presentation is going to be understanding just the basics of Medicare. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to Medicare. You've got what we call original Medicare. That's your red, white, and blue card. It's got two parts to it. It's got Part A and it's got Part B. That's your original Medicare. Then there are Medicare supplements, or you may have heard the term Medigap. If you hear that, they mean exactly the same thing. Then there's Part C, which are Medicare Advantage plans. Again, those two terms are interchangeable. So if you hear the word someone say Part C, use the phrase Part C, it also means Medicare Advantage. They're the exact same thing. I feel like when you watch the TV commercials and you get stuff in the mail or even the phone calls, these folks, I feel like they're almost trying to cause a little bit of confusion to get you to kind of raise your hand and start asking questions, and then it almost feels like they're tricking you into changing your coverage. So just be very careful when your phone's ringing, or if you hear that something's changing or whatnot. If you have an agent that you've worked with or that has helped you sign up, I recommend always get back to them and make sure that you go back to your point of contact and the agent that signed you up, because again, a lot of the commercials and a lot of the phone calls I feel like are out there designed to cause a little bit of confusion. Then there's Part D, prescription drugs. Okay, so the benefits of a broker, the benefits of using a broker, somebody like me or somebody that you've already used to sign you up for your plans. There's no charge for our services, and we represent multiple carriers. So a broker versus somebody who's captive, somebody who just works for Humana, somebody who just works for United Healthcare. All they're able to do is talk to you about the options that are available through that specific company, versus with a broker, they're able to talk to you about all the different options that are available to you with all the companies that are out there. For us, we're local, so we're not just someone that you talk to on the phone and then you never hear from us ever again. It's an ongoing relationship. So I see some familiar faces in here that I've been working with for years, and so you know that it's an ongoing relationship. We don't just sign you up and then disappear and you never hear from us. And we complete a thorough needs analysis to help you identify a plan that best fits your needs. So, like I mentioned earlier, everybody's different. Everybody's got different needs. And so, a common thing that I get, a common question or scenario that I run into a lot is, hey, I've got this insurance plan, or my wife's got this insurance plan, can you just sign me up for the same one? It's usually, it could be that the same plan is going to be the right fit for you, but it could also be that there's a totally different plan that makes more sense for you. So that's what we do, is we sit down with you and kind of identify what your needs are, what's important to you, and then present different options that are going to be available to you. Okay, so again, I know if you can't see this, that's okay. There's 4 boxes. From left to right, we have Part A, which is your hospital insurance. Pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory, right? If you go to the hospital, you're covered by your Medicare Part A. Again, I'm not gonna get into the weeds of a lot of things. I like to keep things simple. I don't like to cause any confusion. Medicare is already very confusing as it is. Then there's the second box, which is your medical insurance. That's your Part B, your medical insurance. That's gonna cover things like your doctor's visits, your specialist, surgeries, therapies, ambulance, your MRIs, CT scans. That's what Part B covers. Then there's Part C, Medicare Advantage. Okay, that's usually it's a combination is what it is. So it's an all-in-one plan in a sense. It's a combination of Part A, a combination of Part B, and a lot of times it includes Part D, prescription drugs. So they call that Part C. So Part A plus Part B plus Part D equals Part C. A lot of letters that are thrown around in the world of Medicare, so we just call them Advantage plans and keep it nice and simple, okay? And then there's prescription drugs, your Part D. So this is optional coverage, or you can add it on to your coverage. And what it's going to do, obviously, as you know, it's going to help lower your prescription drug costs. I know that sounds crazy because some of you are probably thinking, I pay a lot of money for my prescription drugs. But imagine if you were just going and trying to pay cash for them, it would be much more expensive than it would be by having prescription drug coverage, either standalone, like by itself, or built into your Medicare Advantage plan. So Part A, what's the cost of Medicare Part A? So the Part A usually has no cost, so it's premium free. As long as you paid into Social Security for at least 40 quarters or 10 years, you get Medicare Part A for free. You can also qualify on behalf of your spouse. So sometimes I end up in a scenario where wife did not work and husband did. She wants to know if she qualifies when she turns 65. She does on behalf of her husband. So even if you've been divorced, if you were married for at least 10 years, you can qualify for Medicare at age 65. There are some deductibles. So what I'm talking about right now is just Medicare. So a lot of you probably have your Medicare packaged with something, whether it's a supplement, a retirement plan, or a Medicare Advantage plan. What I'm speaking to right now is somebody, let's just imagine that somebody walked in the room and all they had was Medicare. They just had the red, white, and blue card. They had no other insurance in place. What would that look like for that individual? So if they ended up in the hospital, they'd have to pay a deductible of $1,676. So $1,676, that's essentially just to get in the room, Part A, because as I mentioned earlier, Part B covers doctor's visits, specialists, surgeries, therapy. So if you end up in the hospital, any care that you receive while you're in there is not covered by Part A, it's actually covered by Part B. So, and I'll jump into Part B here in just a second, but that $1,676 deductible, that essentially gets your hospital room for the first 60 days, okay? And again, this is the individual who just has Medicare and never signed up for anything else or never packaged their Medicare with anything else. So I always like to kind of take some time to define what Medicare is, so that way people have a clean understanding of what it covers and, like I mentioned, what it doesn't cover, what's missing when it comes to Medicare. Then there's Part B. So there's usually a monthly premium that's associated with Part B. The standard Part B premium for 2025 is $185. Now, some people pay more for that, and then you may have talked to people who don't even have to pay for their Medicare Part B. That causes a lot of confusion. I get that question quite a bit. So if you pay more for your Medicare, it's based on your earnings. So if you were a higher or are a higher income earner, then you're going to pay a higher premium for your Medicare Part B. Almost think of it like a tax bracket, right? The more you make, the higher your tax bracket. It kind of works like that when it comes to Medicare. Now, some people, I get this question. I talked to somebody and they said they don't pay for their Medicare Part B. They said they don't have to pay the $185. There are programs out there that exist that can help pay for your Medicare Part B premium. That program, it's called here in Texas, it's called the Medicare Savings Program. And that program is based on income and assets. That's it, income and assets. It's not based on how old or young or how sick or healthy an individual is. It's strictly based on your income and assets. And so an individual, in order to qualify to get their Medicare Part B premium paid for, they have to be making less than $1,500 a month. That's their gross income. Now, it's not exactly $1,500, it's a little bit higher, but to keep things simple, making less than $1,500 a month, and that's their gross income. So before any deductions, and this includes all income. So if you have any retirement accounts that you're taking income off of, 401ks, Social Security, if you're working anything at all, they're counting your total income, and if it's less than $1,500 a month, then you may qualify to get the $185 a month paid for. If you make more than that, then just know you don't qualify for the Medicare Savings Program. It's very black and white. It's very simple. If you're over by $1, you don't qualify for the program.
What's the name of that program?
The Medicare Savings Program.
Thank you.
Is what it's called. Yep. Now it's also based on assets. So they're looking, an individual would have to have less than $16,000 in assets. They do not count your home and one vehicle. One home and one vehicle is not counted towards that asset limit. Now, if you own a second home or a second vehicle, they do count that towards the asset limit. They're looking at money in the bank, any savings accounts, stocks, bonds, anything like that, if it adds up to more than $16,000, then you won't qualify for the Medicare savings program. All those numbers that I just mentioned, if you're a couple, just double those numbers. So everybody, the question I get this time of year is, how much is Medicare Part B going to cost next year? What's it going up to? Usually CMS, Medicare, makes that announcement around November. I actually did a little bit of homework on that. In years past, they've announced it in October. Other years, they've announced it in December. But the most common month that they've announced it has been in November. So hopefully here in the next 4 to 6 weeks, everybody's going to have the answer to that as to what the Medicare Part B premium is going to be. Now, there are articles out there where people take a guess at what they think Medicare Part B is going to cost, and they're saying, they're projecting, they think that it's going to be a 20, like almost a 10% increase. So $20 increase. They're anticipating that it's going to be a little over $200, so $205 for next year. So that's not me. That's the government. That's Medicare deciding, what the Medicare Part B premium is going to be for next year. But you will get a letter letting you know, notifying you what the Medicare Part B premiums will be for next year, for 2026. So the question is, that comes out of your Social Security. Yes, if you're on Social Security, it comes out of there. If you're not, then you usually set up like auto draft or something like that through the Medicare website.
I thought just Part A came out of your Social Security.
Part A doesn't cost anything. So Part A is free. Free, I say free in air quotes because everybody worked and paid into the system. So Part A doesn't cost anything. Part B does have a cost. And if you're on Social Security, that's what comes out of your Social Security check.
Well, then I have
And so there are, if you didn't meet the criteria to get Part A for free, then you may have a premium. That's a special case. I won't speak to that in front of everyone because it's probably 95% or higher that don't pay for Part A. They pay, it's free to them. Part C, so let's talk about Medicare Part C, Medicare Advantage plans, right? So that means the exact same thing. Part C, Medicare Advantage, they do the exact same thing. So these Medicare Advantage plans are through the private insurance companies that you've all heard of. United Healthcare, Humana, Aetna. I believe in San Antonio there are 15 different companies that offer Medicare Advantage plans here in Bexar County and kind of the surrounding counties. So these are work very much like if you've had group insurance, through your work, you go to the doctor, you pay co-pays, you pay, you go to the specialist, you're going to pay a copay. They're your copay plans is what these Medicare Advantage plans are. There are HMO options and there are PPO options. So let's talk about the difference between an HMO and a PPO. So there are pros and cons to either. There's not one that is better than the other because it all just depends on your situation, right? If you are on a limited income, an HMO might make more sense for you, and here's why. Because with HMOs, you are going to save a lot more money when it comes to your out-of-pocket expenses, meaning when you're going to the doctor, if you need a surgery, if you need an MRI, if you go to the hospital, with an HMO plan, your copays are going to be lower than they would be with a PPO plan. Now, with an HMO, you are not allowed to go out of the network. You've got to stay in the network with an HMO plan, and you usually need a referral to see specialists. Some people are okay with that, some people don't like that. It all comes down to whatever your personal preference is. But many times we find that people, I'll have conversations with people and they want a PPO because they don't, they just feel like there's, a bigger network, more options with PPOs, which that's usually the case. But then we come to find out, hey, all your doctors are in the network with both an HMO plan and a PPO plan. You might save some money if we go with an HMO plan. Others just prefer to have the PPO plan. So again, it comes down to personal preference and what you think is going to make the most sense for you. Then there's PPO. So with PPO, you get more freedom with a PPO plan than you do with an HMO plan. More choice, more freedom. You don't need referrals to start off. So with a PPO plan, you don't have to get a referral to see your specialist. You can just go straight to your specialist. office visit. And then now usually the trade-off there with a PPO is your co-pays are going to be a little bit higher. Now, the majority of Medicare Advantage plans here in this area, in this market, and again, I just want you to think in San Antonio, I don't want you to think I've got a cousin in Dallas who told me they pay this or that, because every market is different. So here in San Antonio, the majority of the Medicare Advantage plans that are out there are zero premium plans. You still pay for Medicare, it still comes out of your Social Security check, but to package your Medicare with a Medicare Advantage plan, there's usually no additional monthly premium. So the difference with when we're looking at an HMO and a PPO is with an HMO, your co-pays when you're actually using your insurance are usually going to be lower with an HMO than they will be with a PPO. These Medicare Advantage usually offer additional benefits that are not covered by original Medicare, that are not covered by your red, white, and blue card. So these are benefits like dental, vision, hearing, transportation, gym memberships, over-the-counter benefits, grocery cards, right? I mean, that is the phone call that I get the most. I'm getting this phone call, somebody's asked, they're talking about $3,000 for groceries. Is that real? Do I qualify? That is the biggest piece of bait I feel that's thrown out there. And here's how I have this conversation with people. I say, look, they're out there fishing. That's the bait they're throwing out, and you're the fish. And they're hoping that you're going to bite onto that piece of bait. So just be very careful, be very cautious. Ask questions to your local agent or to somebody locally. Stay away from picking up the phone and calling, any of those numbers, because those people, and again, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but just in my experience, I know that they're going to make that sale, and you're never going to hear from them again. And they can disrupt a lot of the care that you're receiving. They don't know what you've got coming up. They don't understand what the networks look like here locally. So just be very careful when it comes to that. I will also say, never make your decision based on how much dental a Medicare insurance plan has, or how much vision, or how much of a grocery benefit you're going to get, because I always tell people these are medical plans first. So you want to make your decision based off of, what does it look like when I go to the doctor? Do my doctors take this plan? What does it look like if I need a surgery? What is my bill going to look like if I end up in the hospital? What is it going to look like, if I need to go to therapy after this surgery? That's what you want to look at. Don't make your decision based on how much dental this plan has, how much vision this plan has, how much of a grocery benefit I can get with my plan. Those are the shiny objects that they're waving in front of you. So just be very careful. Make those benefits secondary, and make your decision primarily based off of what the medical benefits look like, because these are medical plans. They're not dental plans, they're not vision plans, they're not grocery plans. Those are just bonus benefits. They're extra benefits that some of these Medicare Advantage plans offer. Now, if you're trying to make a decision and we've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 good options, and we've got 3 good options on the table that make sense because they've got great co-pays, all of my doctors take it, all of my medications are covered, which one do I pick? Then maybe let's factor in the dental and the vision and those extra benefits, but never make your decision leading based off of the extra benefits. So any question around that? I will pause to talk a little bit about those, or answer any questions about the extra benefits or money back into your Social Security check or anything like that. Any questions on that? All right, everyone's got it. Okay. All right, then there's Part D, also sold by private insurance companies. So you got to live in the plan service area. So all of these plan options that are available to you are based on the service area where you live. So your zip code, it's based off of your zip code with these plans. So Medicare, original Medicare, your red, white, and blue card does not cover prescription drugs, but there are Part D plans, prescription drug plans out there that exist that are offered by the private health insurance company. So this year, things changed when it came to prescription drugs. So last year, the most amount of money that a person could spend on their prescription drugs was $8,000. Crazy amount of money. This year, there was a new law that was put into place, and for 2025, it said the most that a person could spend on their prescription drugs is $2,000. So it was reduced significantly. So once somebody has spent $2,000 on their prescription drugs, they've reached their limit, and so they will continue to get those prescriptions filled for the remainder of that year at no cost if you reach your $2,000 limit on your prescription drugs. Next year, that is increasing. So the limit for next year is going to be $2,100. So $2,100. Which could be worse, right? It could be $2,500 or $3,000. So $2,100. So that's the max. If you're wondering, where you're at or how much you've spent on your prescription drugs, your prescription drug company, whatever insurance company you have your prescription drugs with, they send you a monthly statement letting you know how much money you've spent on your prescription drugs thus far. So that'll give you a good clean breakdown as to how much money you've been spending on your prescription drugs. Again, for next year, so I always look at it this way, the way I paint this picture, I say, picture this bucket. There's this imaginary bucket, and anytime you go to the pharmacy to refill your prescriptions and they charge you a $50 copay, that $50 goes into this imaginary bucket. And if you fill that, so what you're doing is throughout the year, you're filling that bucket up. And not when, because not everybody fills this bucket, but if you fill this bucket up to $2,000, you no longer pay anything else. The insurance company pays the rest of your copays for you on your prescription drugs. That every January 1st, that bucket is emptied out, and you're starting over. And that bucket for next year, the size of it is going to be $2,100. Now, on the prescriptions, they must be covered by the insurance plan. So Oscar said $2,000, but they're trying to charge me $5,000 for this medication. What's going on here? That usually is an indicator that that medication is not covered by your prescription drug plan. So you still got to make sure that whatever plan you're choosing, that your prescriptions are covered in order for those costs, those out-of-pocket expenses to qualify to go into that bucket. Because if your drug is not covered by that plan, then it doesn't count towards that $2,000 max. Now, we do see where a lot of people are on medications that are not covered by any prescription drug plan. What do we do in those situations? So usually, the makers of those prescriptions usually have some sort of resource where you can connect with. Maybe they have grants or there's different money. They've got funds available to help either cover or supplement, offset the cost of that medication. So if you discover that a medication that you're taking is not covered by any prescription drug plan, the next thing you should be thinking or planning to do is looking to see if there are any resources out there, any foundations, any grants that you can apply for to see if you can get some of those medications covered. Other times too, you may look at maybe your insurance covers it, but the cost, if you run it through the insurance, as silly as this may sound, the cost to run it through your insurance might be $40. But everybody's heard of GoodRx.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard of GoodRx, right? If you haven't heard of it, I don't work for them. I'm not, but I do. I do always talk to a lot of people about considering, going the GoodRx route, because sometimes your insurance may cover a prescription at $25. You can ask the pharmacy, hey, how much would it be if you ran that medication through GoodRx? And they might say, oh, it's $4.35. Okay, well, give me that one, right? Let's run it this way. The only catch to if you decide to fill a medication through GoodRx instead of your insurance is that $4.35 that you got it for. It doesn't go into that imaginary bucket that we talked about. Only if you run it through the insurance does that out-of-pocket expense go into this imaginary bucket. But again, I tell people insurance is a game. We just got to play the game and figure out, what the winning strategy is for you, and in this case, your list of medications. So, and that changes from one year to the next. So right now, we are in, the annual enrollment period, the open enrollment period. So this is the time of year where you can review your plan benefits and see what they're looking like for next year. So everyone should have received a document called the ANOC. That is usually mailed out in the last week of September. ANOC stands for Annual Notice of Changes. Okay, that's a document that's going to give you a side-by-side comparison of your current coverage on what's changing. So it's not going to list out every single benefit that's available to you. It's only going to list the benefits that are changing. So if you pay $10 to see a specialist and next year it's changing to $15, that's going to be listed on that document. Hey, your specialist copay is $10, next year it's going to be $15. Or it could be a positive change. You know, your copay is $20, next year it's going down to $15. That's going to be listed on that document. But if the benefit is not changing at all, if your copay is $10 this year and it's going to be $10 next year, that will not be listed on that document. Okay, so you should have gotten that document. A lot of people miss it just because there's a lot of mail coming in this time of year. So that's okay. You can just, you can get with your agent, or you can call the insurance company and ask, request that they send that document over to you. But I will stress that it is important to review those plan changes, because the most common thing that we run into in our, on our side of things in this industry is we are so busy the first 3 months of the year, simply because our phone is blowing up saying, hey, I went to the pharmacy and they're charging me $400 for my medications. Last year I was only paying $40. What's going on? So there are changes that happen every single year to your benefits, and this is the time of year right now, the fall, from October 15th through December 7th. That's the annual enrollment period. This is the time to sit down and ask those questions and find out what's changing to your plan with your benefits, to make sure that the plan that you chose for this year is still the winner for next year. Most of the time it is the case, but there are also a lot of instances where there are other options that might make more sense for you as well. So this is the time to review. Again, after you do that review and you discover, hey, everything is good with my plan now, for next year, yeah, maybe some of the co-pays are going up, but overall, I'm pretty happy with the plan. I'm going to stick with it. And if you're going to keep your coverage in place and you're not going to make any changes, you don't have to take any action. It's just going to roll right into the next year, which is another confusing piece to everything, just because of the way that everything is marketed. So a lot of these marketing strategies, they almost scare you into saying, act now before the deadline. Deadline's December 7th, and you may miss out if you don't act before December 7th. Just know that if you are not going to be making any changes to your plan and you're going to keep the same coverage in place, then you don't have to take any action. That December 7th deadline is only for people who will be making changes to their plans. Any questions around open enrollment, annual enrollment period?
How do we know? Oh, sorry.
What about pre-existing conditions?
What about pre-existing conditions in terms of like making plan changes and whatnot? So it depends on what type of coverage that you have. So I'll speak to that. So if you have a Medicare Advantage plan and you're wanting to make changes, there's no underwriting. There are no health questions that are asked. So there's no, whether you have pre-existing conditions or not, you can change from one Medicare Advantage to another. No health questions asked whatsoever. Now, if you have a Medicare supplement, a Medigap, like a Plan G or a Plan F or a Plan N, something like that, those are Medicare supplement policies. If you do want to change your Medicare supplement policy, you would have to go through medical underwriting. So it's almost like applying for life insurance. They're going to ask you a whole bunch of medical questions. They will, pull your medical records and look to see, and then they'll determine whether or not they will accept you or not. Very much like a life insurance policy. So they can choose to accept or deny you when it comes to Medicare supplement policies. But for Medicare Advantage plans, no pre-existing conditions apply. You can move from one to the other.
Can you go from a supplement to
an Advantage plan? Can you go from a supplement to a Medicare Advantage plan? You can. So, because remember, there are no health questions when you don't, no underwriting, no pre-existing conditions if you want to go from a Medicare supplement to a Medicare Advantage plan. That's fine. There's no issue there. Now, what if it was flipped, right? Can you go from a Medicare Advantage plan to a Medicare supplement plan? You also can. However, if you do want to go from an Advantage plan to a supplement, you would have to go through the underwriting process. So they're going to ask you all those medical questions, look at your medical records, and then they'll determine if they will accept you onto the Medicare supplement policy. If they don't, if it gets denied, then you just stay, right where you're at.
But with a pre-existing condition of Parkinson's, they won't accept you on a supplement.
With a pre-existing condition of Parkinson's, they won't accept you on a supplement. So if you already have a Medicare Advantage plan in place and you're wanting to get onto a supplement, that's correct. Medicare supplement companies won't accept it. However, there is a small window where you can get onto a Medicare supplement plan without any health questions whatsoever. So pre-existing conditions don't apply, and that is within the first 6 months of when your Medicare Part B begins. So if your Part B began this month, October 1st of 2025, you have 6 months to opt into a Medicare supplement policy. No questions asked. No pre-existing, doesn't matter. They're going to let you right in there. That is the law. So you can opt into a Medicare supplement within the first 6 months of your Medicare Part B beginning. They will not ask you any health questions whatsoever. If you're outside of the 6-month window, you're going to have to go through medical underwriting. They're going to ask you those questions. So, there's a chance that it could get denied. Now, when you first start on your Medicare, I'll dive a little bit deeper when it comes to Medicare supplements and Medicare Advantage plans. Let's say you just turned 65 and you get a Medicare supplement and you decide, okay, I opted into a Medicare supplement, no health questions, no underwriting, it was guaranteed coverage for myself. And then a year later, I decide, you know what? I think I want to go with a Medicare Advantage plan. I want to try this Medicare Advantage plan. There are rules, there are laws that essentially let you take that Medicare Advantage plan for a test drive up to 1 year. And if within that 1 year, for whatever reason, you decide you don't like it, you're not happy with it, it's not what you thought it was going to be, it does not matter the reason. If you're within that 1 year test drive, you can go back to your Medicare supplement, no questions asked. So it's guaranteed. But that's a once in a lifetime piece that you can use. So you can use that once per lifetime. So again, I'll stop there because I feel like I kind of nerd out about some of these things and the rules and stuff. So I don't want to cause any confusion there. But if you're curious on the whole Medicare supplement, Medicare Advantage, let's chat afterwards. I'm happy to talk with you about that. Okay, so Medicare supplements, very, very simple. There are so many different types of Medicare supplements. They're all labeled by letter. A, B, N, K, L. The whole alphabet, it feels like. But so many different types of Medicare supplements. But I'm going to speak to the most simple type of coverage. And I probably won't elaborate or go any deeper, any further on types of coverage. But essentially, what a Medicare supplement is going to do, if you opt for a Medicare supplement, is Medicare generally only covers about 80% for your hospital and medical benefits. If you pair that, if you package that with a Medicare supplement, that supplement is going to pick up the remaining 20%. That's simple, okay? That is a supplement in 30 seconds, right? Because we can dive into the weeds, I won't do that. But in a nutshell, Medicare covers 80%. If you get a supplement, it's going to pick up the remaining 20%. So that means you're covered at 100%. When you go to the doctor, you won't pay a dime. You go to a specialist, you won't pay a dime. You go to the hospital, you won't pay a dime. You need therapy, you need surgery, you need an MRI, you will not pay a dime if you have a Medicare supplement. You have your Medicare packaged with a Medicare supplement. Okay? Now, what's the catch, or how is that possible, or what's the deal with that? I would like a Medicare supplement. So with Medicare supplements, there is a monthly premium that you have to pay if you choose to have a Medicare supplement. So you'll still pay for your Medicare Part B, the $185 that's taken out of your Social Security check. And if you want a Medicare supplement, there's usually an additional premium that comes along with that. So, if a female turning 65, it's about $125 to $130 a month. A male turning 65, it's about $140 to $150 a month. So males, guys, we're more expensive to insure. I guess we don't take care of ourselves as well as as well as the ladies do. Question?
Okay, so just based on that, if you have the Medicare supplement, is it kind of like the HMO that says you have to go to these doctors, or can you go to any doctor you want?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question is, with a Medicare supplement, does it work like an HMO or PPO where there are networks, or you have to go to this doctor, you've got to stay? So the cool thing about Medicare supplements is there's no network. There is no network when it comes to Medicare supplements, meaning there's HMO, there's PPO, and then there's Medicare supplements. It is the biggest, you have the most choice when it comes to Medicare supplements. So I say no network. The only question you have to ask your doctors is, do you take Medicare? If they take Medicare, they will take your Medicare supplement. It doesn't matter who you've chosen your Medicare supplement with. If you chose your Medicare supplement with Cigna or Blue Cross or Aetna or United Healthcare, it doesn't matter who your Medicare supplement is with. As long as your doctors take Medicare, which I believe it's like 99.2% of doctors nationally take Medicare. Again, that's excluding like pediatric doctors and stuff like that, but it's a little over 99% of doctors, providers that accept Medicare. Then doesn't matter who you have your Medicare supplement with, you can go and you have access to those doctors. If you have a question here?
WellMed supplement?
WellMed is a provider group. WellMed is a group of doctors. So
I'm so mixed up, I don't know.
I forget who I was talking to about WellMed. WellMed, they have many different companies. We're not going to talk about WellMed. I'm happy to talk to you about WellMed afterwards. But WellMed, essentially, you see the signs everywhere. They are a group of doctors. They are like UT Health, or they are like Gonzava, if you've heard of Gonzava. Then there's WellMed, there's Health Texas, there's Conviva. That's simply just a doctor's office. So they are not an insurance company, and they are not a supplement. They are not anything like. They are just. That's the name of a doctor's office is what they are here at Tech. So they are not a supplement. And the question was, is WellMed a supplement? WellMed is not a supplement.
Do they accept supplements?
They do.
Accept
Does WellMed accept supplements? Yes, they do. Yeah. Because going back to do you take Medicare? Yes, they do. So if you have Medicare, then you can go in with your Medicare supplement policy. So another fun fact about, not fun fact, another fact about Medicare supplements, because this is not fun, you will see the premiums go up year over year. So it's not like life insurance where when you buy it, you're usually locked into that rate. With Medicare supplements, that's not how it works. So you will see your prices and your premiums go up year over year. Question?
Does the state of Texas require all health providers to offer that to anyone below the age of 65?
To offer what?
Supplement plans?
So Medicare supplements are available to anybody with Medicare. Yeah. So
It's just the premium will be adjusted based on, because if you're below 65, they're going to assume you're a disability.
yeah, so you can get Medicare one of two ways: when you turn 65, or if you get it before the age of 65, it's through disability. Those are the only two ways that you can get Medicare. So it's below the age of 65. Now there are rules if you're under the age of 65. Again, that's opening a can of worms there, but yeah, if you're under the age of 65, there's a lot of different rules when it comes to Medicare supplement coverage. But you essentially you will see the prices go up year over year. So and it's based on your age, right? This year, the way I explain it is you get the price of a 65-year-old. Next year, you'll get the price of a 66-year-old. The following year, so on and so on. So you will see the premiums increase year over year. The average increase that we see is about 10%. Could be less, could be more. But if you are in the market for a Medicare supplement, I would just recommend sticking to the heavy hitters, the big companies. The companies that we know, the Humana, the Aetna, the Blue Cross, the Cigna, and even United Healthcare. Those are Mutual of Omaha. Those are the heavy hitters. And this is a personal opinion. This isn't me. My personal opinion is I stay away from the smaller companies simply because the way I look at it is if this was my own mom or dad that I'm signing up for a plan, I would want them with a company that has a strong reputation. Not so much because of coverage, because coverage is identical no matter what company you choose for your Medicare supplement. If you have a Medicare supplement with Cigna or Humana or Blue Cross, the coverage does not change, but really what we're looking at is what are my premiums, what are my prices going to look like 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 10 years from now, because I know they're going to go up. Which company has shown the most stability historically, right? Has had where their premiums are not shooting up like that. You know, I'm looking for a company that's kind of treading the line this way, as opposed to a company where we call it like the honeymoon rate, right? Hey, I got a quote from this company that I've never heard of, and they're quoting me, you know, you said $125, they're quoting me at $85 a month. I think I'm going to go with them. Just be careful with those companies, because we see it a lot in this industry where they get you at the honeymoon rate, and we call it the honeymoon rate because, hey, you got in real early, you got in at $85, but then when the rate increase comes next year, instead of it being closer to the average of 10%, maybe it's a 30% increase. And then the following year it's a 20% increase. And so before you know it, you're paying a whole lot more than, you know, your friend who went with a different company, because you got in at that honeymoon rate, but now your premiums have skyrocketed. So just keep that in mind. Again, that's my personal opinion. That's why I stick to the larger companies when it comes to Medicare supplements, is because I'm looking for companies that show stability and consistency throughout. Mr. Garza, did you have a question?
Yes. On your Medicare supplement, at the can you change that supplement during
like the open enrollment?
Yeah.
So can you change your Medicare supplement?
Like from a B to a C or a G to a H or like that?
So supplements, there's G's, there's F's. So if you can change supplements, so the question is, can you change your supplement? The answer is yes. However, you have to go through underwriting. So if you know, so that's once you select your Medicare supplement. If you want to go to any other type of Medicare supplement, you can, but you're going to be subject to that underwriting. Hey, I've got a Plan G, and I see that there's a different Medicare supplement, Plan N. It's cheaper. Can I get that? You can apply for it, and you'll have to go through underwriting, and they'll see if you qualify or not. So even if you're trying to switch your supplement from one company to another, I want to keep my supplement. I don't want an Advantage plan. I want to stay on the Medicare supplement side of things, but I'm with Blue Cross. Can I move to United Healthcare? You'll have to go through underwriting. So if you want to switch your Medicare supplement around, you'll have to go through underwriting. So a lot of rules around Medicare supplements. Okay, so enrollment period. So there's IEP, right? IEP is an enrollment period that stands for Initial Enrollment Period. That is when you are aging into Medicare, when you are first turning 65. So that is a 7-month window. It's 3 months before your birthday month, the month of your birthday, and the 3 months after your birthday. So it's a 7-month window that you have to enroll into your Medicare plan, whatever plan that that you want to choose. Then there's a SEP, a Special Enrollment Period. So sometimes people qualify for what's called a Special Enrollment Period. Hey, Oscar, I'm 68 years old. I didn't take Medicare when I turned 65 because I was still working. Now I'm retiring and I'm not going to have health insurance, so I need to get on to Medicare. That's an example of a Special Enrollment Period. Or if somebody moves from Dallas and they move to San Antonio, that qualifies them for a Special Enrollment Period, so they can make some changes to. Now, all the rules that we went over, supplements, underwriting, health questions, all that applies. But with Medicare Advantage, if they have a Medicare Advantage plan, there's no health questions that are asked. Then there's AEP, Annual Enrollment Period. So that is right now, well, next week, right? October 15th through December 7th. This is the time of year where insurance companies announce what's changing on their benefits. So just always assume that the benefits you have now will not be the same next year in 2026. So this is the time of year from October 15th through December 7th to look at what's changing on your plan and looking to see if it's still going to be the right plan for next year. Also, it's a time to essentially the time to shop around. Are there any other plans, you know, in the market that my doctors take that cover my medications that might save me some money? This is the time of year to do that. Then there's the open enrollment period. That is during the first 3 months of the year. So January 1st through March 31st is what's called the open enrollment period. So this is the time of year for people, it's only for people who have a Medicare Advantage plan. So if you have a supplement, cover your ears. This doesn't apply to you. Or, you know, if you just have a drug plan, you don't have a Medicare Advantage plan, also cover your ears. So Mr. Garza, cover your ears. But OEP, open enrollment period, this is only for people who have a Medicare Advantage plan. So if you don't have a Medicare Advantage plan, just don't listen to what I'm about to say, but open enrollment period, if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, it's the time that you can change from one plan to another. So almost like hey, I missed the deadline on December 7th last year, can I still make a change to my plan? They give you a one-time opportunity to make a change during the first quarter of the year, during the first 3 months of the year. So why do they do that? Why does that happen? Well, what they've discovered is that people usually, the majority of people, I think it's like 85 to 90% of people, don't change their Medicare Advantage plan. They just let it roll into the new year. And so what happens is the new year rolls around, and I talked about it a bit ago, they go to the pharmacy to fill their medication, and now their medication is not covered anymore. Or now, well, it was covered last year, it's not covered this year. That was one of the changes that happened to your plan. Or that medication that costs you $10 now costs $80. That's a pain point, right? Even if you can afford it, you have the budget, who wants to pay an extra $70 for a medication if maybe you don't have to? So it gives those people, or maybe, I don't know, buyer's remorse, right? I signed up for this Humana plan, I had United Healthcare, I signed up for Humana, but then turns out one of my specialists is not in the network, so I want to make sure I keep that specialist, I'm going to go back to my United Healthcare plan. Or, you know, again, I missed the deadline, but I really wanted to see, you know, what options I have available to me. Can I change my plan? You'll have that one-time opportunity during the first quarter of the year to make a change to your plan. Yes?
On the Medicare Advantage plan, does it come with a drug supplement to it?
So the question is, do Medicare Advantage plans come with drug coverage? Some do, some don't. So a lot of Medicare Advantage plans do include prescription drug coverage, and then there are plans out there that don't. Why is that, or why do those exist? Some people have, you know, VA benefits or TRICARE for life benefits. So maybe they fill their medications through the VA or through TRICARE. So you don't need a Medicare Advantage plan that includes drug coverage because you fill them at the VA, for example. So there are plans like that. So not all Medicare Advantage plans cover prescription drugs, but most of them do. Questions? I didn't want to, so I have this other presentation that I've used before. I think I've given it to this group. It's like 3 times as long, and I don't know, start putting people to sleep. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep it short and sweet this year, and really just keep it to, what did I keep it to? I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. And then just kind of open it up for questions. So, question, yes?
Okay, so last year, the big change was that they did away with the donut hole.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any big change that they did this year from last year?
So last year they did away with the donut hole. Is there a big change coming up for next year? So no, the cap was $8,000. They lowered it to $2,000. That was the elimination of the donut hole. So the cap next year is going to be $2,100. That's the change. Small change, not a big change to that.
So there's nothing else exciting that's happening?
Nothing else exciting. I mean, I'll speak to this. You know, we last year, from 2024 to 2025, we saw, you know, for the first time in my career, where you know, insurance companies in general were facing a lot of headwinds. Meaning, for the first time in my Medicare career, right, in my 13 years, that I saw. Let me back up. When I first started in the industry, it just seemed like every year these Medicare benefits just got better and better and better and stronger and stronger and more of this and more of this and more of that. Last year, from 2024 to 2025, was the first year where we actually saw things go in a backwards direction. So, hey, your copay, every year your copay's gone down. Guess what? This, for next year, your copay is going up. So it was a year where we had to have a lot of tough conversations with people saying, hey, your copays are going up. Your copays are going up. The cost of your medications are going up. It was a year where we were seeing an increase where basically a lot of the out-of-pocket expenses were being transferred to you guys, to the members, right? So couple of driving, many driving factors to that, but the main driving factors were the elimination of the donut hole. So essentially somebody's got to pay for it. It doesn't just magically get paid for, right? And so what they did was they had to kind of transfer some of that cost over to the members. And it wasn't necessarily directly in the form of prescription drugs. It could have been, hey, you used to have a $2,000 dental package, now we're cutting that in half to $1,000. Or hey, you used to pay $10 to see your specialist, now it's going to be $20 to see your specialist. So that's how, that was one thing. And then they, in this, we had the elimination of the donut hole, and then there was a reduction in funding from CMS, from Medicare. So every year Medicare's contracted with all these insurance companies, and they pay them a set amount of money to put together your insurance benefits. So last year, moving into 2025, CMS reduced the amount of money that Medicare reduced the amount of money that they were giving the insurance companies to put together benefit packages for you guys. So those are the two main driving factors as to why you saw, essentially you did not see your benefits get better, you kind of saw them go backwards. We're seeing that again this year, so just be prepared, right? Still headwinds, we're still kind of in a storm where from 2025 to 2026, you may see, more reduction in benefits. You might have a little less dental, or you might have some increased copays, or you might, if you're having to pay that prescription deductible every year, it might be a little bit higher next year. So just keep all that in mind. Those are the reasons behind it. And again, I'm just the messenger, guys. I'm just the one who's giving out there, because sometimes people get really heated and passionate to me, and I'm like, it's not me. I'm just delivering the information. This is, I don't make these decisions. They give us the information, and we're here to give it to you. So, question?
Yes, I wanted to, back up to the spot where you talked about, hang on, my brain fog is coming in.
I can come back. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll come back to you. But again, just be prepared for that we are going to see, more scaling back of benefits for 2026, but that doesn't mean that everybody should expect it, right? There are still some, maybe the plan that you're on, there aren't any significant changes, or maybe the plan that you're on is improving. I'm just kind of speaking in a more general context. We are in a time where we're seeing, these, your out-of-pocket expenses are going to go up a little bit, moving into the new year. You got the question? All right, here we go.
It's about the referrals. When you were mentioning you don't need a referral on one of those plans.
Yeah.
You do on the other.
Okay.
So I just moved to San Antonio
Okay.
a few weeks ago, and I'm getting all new doctors.
Yeah.
And I'm confused if I need to always call my insurance company, or am I gonna need a referral from a new primary care for all the specialists that I need to go see? And I'm just confused about that. So, but you mentioned something that was a bright light to me a while ago, that you don't need a referral. Tell me.
Yeah. So the question's about referrals, essentially, right? How do the referrals work when it comes to these types of plans and coverages? So there's Medicare, and it branches off into two categories. There's Medicare Advantage, and there's Medicare Supplements. Okay. So with Medicare Supplements, on this branch over here, no referrals required. So you don't need permission to go see anybody. As long as they take Medicare, you're in the door. You have access to care. Now on this branch, on the Medicare Advantage side, essentially there's two types of Medicare Advantage coverage. There are HMOs and there are PPOs.
I have PPO.
With an HMO, you need a referral, okay? You have to get a referral to see a specialist. Now, the referral work is not done by you, it's done by the doctors. So if you're with your primary doctor and you've got some heart things going on and you want to get over to a cardiologist, they're going to say, all right, well, I'm going to get you over to Dr. Johnson, our cardiologist, we'll get you going. That's not homework for you. It's not for you to say, all right, well, I got to go find Dr. Johnson and call him and tell him I've got a referral. No, the doctor's office is going to contact Dr. Johnson, your cardiologist, and say, then they'll reach out to you and say, hey, we got a phone call, a referral coming from your primary doctor to come in and see us. Let's look at what your schedule looks like. That's with an HMO. With a PPO plan, you don't need referrals to see specialists. So you don't have to ask for permission to go and see a specialist with a PPO plan. However, there is a network. There's still a network if you have a PPO plan. So if you want to make sure that your doctor's in the network if you have a PPO plan. But the neat thing about a PPO is you are allowed to go out of the network. Unlike an HMO where you have to stay in the network, you are not allowed to go outside of the network. With a PPO plan, you can. Here's the catch. With a PPO, if you're going to see a doctor that is not in the network, that provider, that doctor must be willing to accept you as an out-of-network patient. So you cannot just force yourself in there. You can't just say, well, I've got a PPO, so you've got to see me. They can choose to take you or not. So the catch to an out-of-network PPO doctor is they have to be willing to accept you as an out-of-network patient. But also mind you, if you do go out of the network and they are willing to see you as an out-of-network patient, almost every time it's much more expensive to go out of the network with a PPO plan than it is with an HMO. So my wife, when we were pregnant with our son, she had a PPO, Blue Cross Blue Shield. We made sure that we stayed in the network. So I was like, we're not going out of the network. I know how insurance works. I know it's going to be way more expensive to bring this baby into the world if we go out of the network. So we're going to make sure that we stay in the network when we have this kid. So just because you have a PPO and you have the freedom to go out of the network, financially it doesn't make sense to do it. So always I encourage you to try to stay in the network with a PPO plan, even if you but there are exceptions, right? Hey, this doctor's really great, and I would love to have access to them, and I'm willing to pay more to have access to this doctor. Sure, by all means. But again, if you can, try to stay in the network with a PPO plan. Does that answer your question? In a sense,
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
On Part D, about 4 years ago, we were paying $300 a month for this. And then it went twice as high, $624. And then in 2024, it went up to $730. So I called the agent, and she said, well, let me check. I can probably give you one for zero pay. So we paid nothing for our Part D last year.
Yeah.
I didn't know, I don't think she asked us any questions. So is that something anybody else needs to know?
I will say, it's likely, but it would have to be, there's a lot of specific questions that would have to be, at least, I can't really speak to that because I couldn't tell you, how that came to be, but it happens. I don't know how something went from, so she was saying she would, a few years ago, she paid $300 for Part B, and then $600, and then $700, and then suddenly it went down to zero when they called their agent. So possible, I don't know. I mean, prescriptions, Part D, everybody is different. So we have, systems, platforms where we plug in your medications, and it goes in and does all this cool technological stuff, and then it runs a report and says, okay, based on Judy's list of medications, this is the plan that makes the most sense, and this is the plan that, this is how much it's estimating that she's going to spend on her prescription drugs. And that is going to look totally different for Wayne, right? We'll run his medications, and it's going to look totally different when we run the report, because everybody takes different medications. Not everybody takes the same list of medications. So how it went from 700 to zero, I don't know. I mean, I bet I can figure it out, but I probably have to get my computer and ask you a bunch of questions, say, oh, this is how it happened, or oh, I see, that makes sense. I'll be able to connect the dots, I'm sure, but I wouldn't be able to do that without my my powerful technological tool. But happy to, I mean, we can talk more about it. I'm curious now, because I'm sure there's a way. I'd like to see how it happens. Yeah. Question?
We have United Healthcare with no supplement. So what's the advantage of having no supplement? I know it's premium.
We have a PPO.
So we don't pay a premium because we don't have a supplement.
Yeah. Is it your PPO? Is it like a retirement plan, or is it just a? No, it's not retirement. So United Healthcare PPO, yeah. So there's Advantage and there's supplements. So you have the United Healthcare Advantage PPO. Because when somebody tells me I have United Healthcare, for me, that's not enough. There are 15 different United Healthcares, that are out there. So yeah, you are on the Advantage side. These don't have premiums, but you have copays. You probably pay when you use your services.
But I was in the hospital for 5 months, and I paid right around 20%.
Yeah, so if it's the PPO that I think it is, the copay is $300 per day for the first 6 days. So it's usually about anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800 is what that probably. So it's not a percentage that you pay with Medicare Advantage plans.
Yeah, they
It's
try to
usually
get you
copays.
out in 6 days, so.
Yeah. Well, after, with all these Medicare Advantage plans, it doesn't mean you're only covered for those days. It just means you pay for those first few days, but they all cover unlimited number of days in the hospital.
So what advantage is it? Is it just the premium, or is there other advantages?
Yeah.
that just happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the question is, what are the advantages of an Advantage plan, essentially, right? It's a copay plan. So here's what that hospital copay, if you just had Medicare, let's say you didn't have a supplement and you didn't have an Advantage plan, but you have Medicare. If you ended up in the hospital for a week, that bill you'd be subject to 20% of the cost of whatever that bill looks like. Now, my daughter was in the hospital for one night last year. I got a $19,000 bill for that. So now they reduced it, right? I hate the inflation of all these medical services and whatnot, but I got a $19,000 bill. So imagine that 6 days, that's a $100,000 bill. If you only had Medicare and you didn't have an Advantage plan or a supplement, you'd be subject to 20% of that bill. So you'd be looking at a $20,000 bill, essentially, right? Versus with a Medicare Advantage plan, depending on what plan you have, there's a fixed copay. So it's basically an agreement that says if you end up in the hospital, instead of paying 20% of that daily rate, you just pay a copay of $100 or $300.
MRIs.
Yep, same thing. You would pay 20%.
And it costs $185.
Yeah. So with Medicare, if you only have Medicare, you're pretty much paying 20% of the bills everywhere you go. With an Advantage plan, instead of paying 20%, you just pay a fixed copay.
Okay.
So it's going to reduce your out-of-pocket costs over the course of time when you're using your insurance plan. Good question.
I have the United Healthcare Advantage plan, PPO, but my copays are zero for everything I do.
Yeah.
I have no copay.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to look at your plan. Again, there are 15 different United Healthcare plans. And when somebody tells me they pay zero, they're usually what we call a dual. So those people may have something else in place. So it just depends. I won't speak to that because that's very specific to you.
It's just confusing.
Yeah. Mr. Garza?
Is there a supplement covered dental?
Say that again?
Is there a supplement to your regular Medicare?
Yeah.
That includes dental coverage?
Not with supplements. So let me talk about that. And I didn't speak to that. So thank you for bringing that up. The dental, the vision, the groceries, the over-the-counter, you cannot get that with a Medicare supplement. If you are going to have that, it would be on the Medicare Advantage side of things, not on the Medicare supplement side of things. So with Medicare Advantage, it may or may not. Uh-oh. I got one too.
Yeah. Isaac says when it happens at Walmart, it goes.
I was eating at a restaurant once, and the Amber Alert went off, and there were a couple of guys at the table next to us, and one of the guys was really annoyed by the fact that his lunch was interrupted. And I just thought, gosh, would you feel if that was your kid? You know, like, yeah, take the time to, you know, to read it. So I'm never bothered by these things. So, yeah, so again, Medicare, two options. You have Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement. If you go with the supplement, there's no dental package, anything like that built into it. If you go with an Advantage plan, there might be. It doesn't mean it's going to have a dental package and a vision package and all that, but it might include it. With Medicare supplements, I always kind of tell people it's your a la carte option. So you choose your Medicare supplement, and if you want dental, you add dental. If you want, and you pay for it. If you want vision, you add vision and you pay for it. So it is, you know, there's more monthly premiums that come out versus over here it's zero premium, and it may already include dental, it may already include vision, it may already include those over-the-counter benefits and the gym memberships. But Medicare supplements don't offer those extra benefits. All they're going to do is cover that remaining 20% that Medicare doesn't cover. Good question. So if you have a supplement, it's not going to come with dental, vision, hearing, transportation, no groceries, none of those extra benefits.
Zero premiums?
Say that again?
Are those usually zero premiums?
The
Advantage versus or the supplement versus the Advantage? Is the Advantage more expensive?
Yeah, so the premiums on Advantage plans are usually zero. The majority of them are zero premium plans. With supplements, there's always a premium. That's where I was saying, you know, a female turning 65, it's going to be about $125 a month, and you do see those premiums go up year over year with Medicare supplements. So it's like you know, I get the call, they're like, my supplement's going up. Is it because I've been in the hospital, or is it because I had a surgery? No, that's just the rate increase that they're giving you. So it doesn't, you could never use it's like car insurance. I haven't got, knock on wood, I haven't gotten any tickets or gotten into any accidents, but every time my renewal comes up, my prices have gone up. You know, it's just, you know, so that's kind of how it is with Medicare supplements too.
Question. Is the Medigap the same thing as Medicare supplement?
You got it.
Same thing.
That's exactly right. Medigap and Medicare supplement mean the exact same thing, just like Part C and Medicare Advantage mean the exact same thing.
Is there a website where we can compare plans?
Is there a website where you can compare plans? Medicare.gov. Yeah. Now you can compare Medicare Advantage plans and prescription drug plans. Medicare.gov does not offer comparisons for Medicare supplements.
Oh.
Why? Because Medicare supplements are standardized. The coverage is identical no matter what, so there's nothing to compare, you know, in terms of coverage. Anybody else? All right, well, I'm going to hang out for just a little bit. So, guys, thank you so much for allowing me to be here in front of the group here today. And I'm sorry for those who were expecting me last year. I owe you an apology. I'm sorry I did not make it. I had some little family emergency come up, and so I was not able to be here. But I enjoy doing this. Gosh, it's maybe the 5th or 6th year that I've done this, and so I love it. I enjoy getting in front of people. I'm happy to, you know, have conversation, answer questions. I have some cards here, so even if you please do not feel obligated to, if there's something you want to ask me, please do. There's no obligation. Don't feel like, well, I'd like to ask him, but then he's gonna, you know, no. Like if you have an agent, you're happy with your agent, all that good stuff. Please, I'm gonna encourage you to stay with them because that's what I hope when I help people sign up. I hope that they stay with me, right? But also happy to answer any questions. Again, I nerd out about this stuff, so I'm happy to just talk about it with you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know.
Wednesday.